so today was not really a construction day, it was more of a material pickup day. So I got a lot of the stuff so that I can start trimming the windows. Once the windows are trimmed out, then I can install the rain screen strips, and then we can start on the siding. And I also have to do the utility box, which is at the front of the house, or I guess where the tongue of the trailer is. One question that we've gotten over and over and over again is, are you gonna have solar panels or a solar system on your tiny house? Now me personally, coming from a background of being an electrician and researching photovoltaic systems like you wouldn't believe, I don't feel like a solar system is an ideal situation for a tiny house. One of the main things being is that in a tiny house is that you have a very limited amount of size that you can actually work with. I want to preface this video by saying I think the whole fracking process is totally just ridiculous. And so in this tiny house, we're not gonna have any appliances or any stoves or anything like that that run on natural gas or propane. This is a personal choice. Everything is gonna be 100% electric in this tiny house. Now with everything being electric, which includes your cooking appliances and your heating appliances, is that your electrical load for the house is gonna be significantly larger if you're using natural gas or propane for heating and for cooking. I definitely knew that beforehand, just as working as an electrician for such a long time, that, you know, like electric baseboard heaters and any type of electric heater or electric cooking appliances, they use a significant amount of electricity. So if I'm coming from that place where I need a really, really large photovoltaic system, a really large solar system that includes a lot of panels, lots of battery storage, just an overall bigger system, there's not a lot of room in a tiny house to fit that in there. It's hard enough to design it so that it's gonna be a comfortable living space and it doesn't seem like too cramped in, just with the bare essentials in it and not including a solar system. So yeah, some people do include solar systems in their tiny houses. For the most part, they are not using that solar system for their heating or for their cooking, for their hot water, etc., etc. They're using propane or natural gas. So the actual size of their solar system, in terms of the panels and the battery storage, is going to be quite small compared to the solar system that we would need for specifically this tiny house. So where are you gonna mount the panels? The panels are typically mounted on the roof. If you mount the panels on the roof of a tiny house, you gotta remember that you only have a certain amount of height that you can go up to with the tiny house. In most states, it's 13.5 feet, so everybody typically builds their tiny house at 13.5 feet. So if you're adding on solar panels on top of your tiny house, that means that the overall structure has to be, I don't know, maybe another 4 to 6 inches shorter in the interior so that you're not going over 13.5 feet. Those panels are also gonna add a considerable amount of weight to the house. Then where are you gonna mount the batteries? Are they gonna be mounted inside the house? Are they gonna be mounted outside of the house? One of the things with, I know specifically lead acid batteries, is that they can't be in like a freezing temperature. They have to be at a certain temperature in order for them to actually work properly. I'm not entirely sure about lithium ion batteries, like the Tesla Powerwall uses lithium ion as opposed to lead acid. I don't know the exact specifications whether the lithium ion battery can be like mounted outside and still perform properly even if it's in like a freezing cold climate. Not entirely sure about that, but in order to have like a really decent system for running all of your appliances on electricity, it's gonna be extremely difficult to do in a tiny house, just because there isn't that much size. There are people that do it and it can totally be done, but I don't think that it's really an ideal situation. By the way, batteries are really freaking heavy too. Like there's a weight restriction with how much weight this trailer can hold. So you don't want to be loading on an extra several hundred pounds worth of batteries in your tiny house, because you don't know whether or not you're pushing the limit of the trailer with adding in all these batteries and panels and the charger controller and the converter and all that different type of stuff that has to go into a solar system. You might be pushing the weight limit of the trailer, and that's something that you don't want to be doing either. So in my personal opinion, if you're gonna have a tiny house and you want to have a solar system along with it, and you want to have like a pretty decent system, and you're not gonna be relying on natural gas or propane, I would make a structure separate to the tiny house in order to mount the panels and for a place for all the batteries. Now, the best example that I have seen of a tiny house using a solar system would be the tiny tack house. They have the panels sitting on the ground and it goes into the charge controller, which is at the tongue of the trailer in their utility box. And then the batteries are actually stored just next to the house in this container that is insulated really, really well. They live in the Pacific Northwest, so I believe they live in Washington State somewhere, I believe, or it's in Oregon. And that's the best setup that I've seen in terms of using a solar system along with a tiny house. One good thing about mounting the panels on the ground or having like a framing for the panels on the ground, in order to get the best efficiency out of your panels, you don't have to have your house oriented in a certain direction. You can have the house oriented in whatever direction you want, and then wherever the panels are on the ground, you can orient those in the direction that's going to be the best for getting the most amount of power from the sun. And also, because their batteries and their panel is separate from the house, it's not going to add to the total weight. It doesn't take up any space on the inside. So I think that's going to be probably the best way to do it. When we take this tiny house 100% solar, what I'm going to build is like a solar house that is going to house the batteries. The panels will probably be mounted to the top. It'll have the charge controller and the converter in this, like, it'll kind of be like a little shed, right? And it'll have that all inside. If I want to run the house off solar, all I have to do is just run a cable to the solar house and just plug into it. Then I'm not gonna run into all those issues that I mentioned before. So a solar system for a tiny house, obviously it can certainly be done and a lot of people do it, but a lot of the solar systems are very small and it's only enough to run the lights, maybe charge your laptop and run the refrigerator, and that's about it. For the most part, you're not gonna be able to build a big enough system to do the cooking and the heating off the electricity, just because it would take up so much space within a tiny house. If you have any other questions that you would like me to answer in video form while I'm building this lovely tiny house, leave them in the comment box below, and we'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Peace.